What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Speak Up series. Today we have a very special guest. Some of you guys might know her from her work on The Act on Hulu. She's also recently been in The Kissing Booth on Netflix and has another Kissing Booth movie coming out soon as well.
Booked and
But she's
busy.
no newbie to this industry. Joey, how long have you been in this industry?
I have been since I was 4, and
Wow.
I'm 21 at the end of July.
Oh man.
So let me just.
Wow.
I'm terrible at math. Well, a long time, like
A
16.
long
A
time.
long
A
time.
long time.
It's like 17 or 16 or 17 years or something.
Just a minute.
She's been veteran, basically, guys. We gotta give Joey King her props. Give it up for Joey King, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for
coming on.
having me.
Of course, man. Of course. And when we were thinking about who to bring on and impactful voices, you were one of the first people that I thought of. But we really kind of just want to start out the show by asking everybody, because we know that the current events of the world can be a lot on people's mental health right now. So we really just wanted to kind of check in and see how you feeling, Joey. How's your headspace and all of this?
My headspace right now is okay, but I think that throughout, like when quarantine started and like the last couple of months for sure has been one of those things where I can kind of feel myself just steadily declining. And that was weird because generally, like I'm not a person, I'm very lucky. I don't struggle with clinical depression. Like overall, I would say I'm a pretty like happy person. But I also knew I wasn't going through that by myself. I knew that a lot of people in the world were feeling very, very similar. But when George Floyd's murder happened and Breonna Taylor's murder happened and all these protests started, and I was seeing all this, kind of just movement online about it, and the rioting started and all this crazy stuff was happening, it really did pull me out of that slump, being like, not that having feelings is selfish and not that feeling like you need to take care of yourself is selfish at all. It's not. But it did make me realize like I am so small in a good way. And it kind of just like refueled my like feeling of purpose that I kind of was losing. And I feel really, I'm happy that I have such strong beliefs about this kind of stuff and about what's happening right now, because it makes me feel more human.
I can, definitely attest to feeling the same way. We talk about quarantine and how crazy of a time period this is. We're gonna look back on this and be like, wow, we really lived through that.
Yeah.
And it's just so insane because we get this routine going, and especially as we enter into our young adulthood and we start to find ourselves, it's like, okay, I'm starting to get a rhythm. I'm starting to understand, even though adulthood is scary as ever, but we're starting to understand things a little bit more, and then all of a sudden the world just comes to a stop. And I don't think, I think that people recognize how crazy it is, but it can truly, truly have a toll on somebody's mental health. So, I was feeling the same way. And then as soon as George Floyd's murder happened, that's kind of when I kind of feel like I went back into an even deeper sadness. But then I started to see people organizing and moving and realizing, okay, we have to do something about this. That's when I found, a sense of purpose and
Yeah.
a sense of, okay, now I have something to fight for again. Even though the world is paused, we have a movement that needs to be pushed forward. So I can definitely attest to that. Yeah.
But that's also where my privilege comes in too, in the way in which something like this happens. And I feel fueled by the fact that I can learn more and educate myself instead of having to experience it firsthand,
Yeah. Oh yeah. 1000%.
It's like it's so interesting, seeing a movement like this start up, especially like online. A lot of people are sort of in like decision making of like, should I say something online about it? Is that enough? Am I doing my part? And you haven't been shy to use the platform that you have to show your support for Black people and for equality for all truly. What do you think it was that brought you to that realization that maybe that there's more to this than just sort of like, oh, I'm scared about my brand deals or whatever,
Right. I mean, for me, I have absolutely zero sympathy or feeling of understanding for people who are like, well, I don't know if I really want to post about this. It's like, go and bug yourself. I don't know if I can say that, but go bug yourself. I think honestly, I'm so grateful, and it's so lucky to have such a big platform, especially on Instagram. And even if people don't agree with me, I know that people will see what I have to say and they'll think about it, whether they hate me for it or whether they like me for it. I don't really care. And I'm just really thrilled that I have that opportunity to share my opinion, my voice, what I feel is right. And I also feel like it's kind of, it's like if you, it's not like I don't feel the responsibility of it. It's that I know that it's a responsibility that I have to just share what I feel and voice my opinion, because what I feel is like human rights are important, you know, and that should not be even a little bit controversial, and that shouldn't spark anything but positive conversation. But I mean, there's a lot of crazy people out there. So I don't know. I feel like it's super important for me to share my opinion, especially too as a white person, because 76% of American people are white. 13% of American people are Black. And so when you want change to happen, and when you want to start a movement, and when you want to see things actually shifting, and the system and the government starting to move and shift and change, you need the majority to help the minority. You can't expect just years and years of oppression and just the Black community to fight this on their own. It's too big. It's too much. There's too many people history who are abusing power. There's too much history. So you need to, as a white person, it is your duty to fight with your Black community, with people that you care about. Because I mean, I saw this video of Rihanna speaking at an award show. She's like, how many of us have friends who are from different religious backgrounds, different colors? Like, tell your friends to pull up. They like you, don't they? So tell them to fight for you.
Thanks.
Yeah. Powerful stuff. Yeah. I was there when Rihanna said that, and I just remember the energy in the room. Yeah, it was crazy.
I'm sorry. Hold on.
Wait, was the NAACP.
Okay.
Yeah.
Saw Rihanna in the
When
flesh.
she made that statement, and you know, it kind of just brought the room together in a moment of solidarity, you know, because it was like we're all fighting for this, but it seemed like Rihanna was pushing a message that hadn't really been pushed before. We have to, exactly what you were just saying, Joe, you know, we have to realize that it's outside of us, and we have our friends that don't understand what we go through, but you know, if they have empathy and they have compassion, then they should be able to lend an ear and listen to you and try to understand as best that they can.
And it shouldn't be hard. It shouldn't be hard for people to want to help, to want to be there. And also, one thing that I've really noticed, and it really upsets me, it shouldn't be hard to acknowledge as a white person the privilege that you have, because so many people are obsessed with the idea of being oppressed themselves because it makes them feel better about everything else that's happening in the world. It's okay that you are privileged. You need to acknowledge that privilege, though, in order to move forward so that change can happen. Because if you're sitting there being like, well, I stand with this, but I also have a hard life because of X, Y, Z. It's like, that's not the issue. The issue is that Black lives are in danger, not whatever the hell you're talking about. So it's like, you gotta acknowledge your privilege. You gotta acknowledge the things that you were just fortunate enough to have the opportunity to do, and Black people weren't. Even if, you know, I mean, I saw these things about, like, you know, white communities who are really poor versus Black communities who are really poor. And it's just, people of color just don't even have the opportunity that white people have, no matter what, you know, how much money they do or don't have.
What would you say, you know, to like kids who maybe don't feel like their voice is loud enough, or like, you know, because I feel like in this country, and you know, this is part of the reason why we're doing Speak Up series, and it's you know, young people, like, I feel like a lot of kids feel like they don't have a voice, or if they can't vote, you know, their opinion about how life goes doesn't matter. What do you think is sort of a solution for kids that it may not even be different than, you know, anybody else, like learning and stuff like that, but it's like, you know, at least I grew up not feeling like people heard me for all that I had to say. And it's, you know, it's unfortunate because it's like, we have ideas, and also when our ideas are heard, it's like we're able to hear back the ideas where we're wrong, or, you know, it gives us a chance to learn.
I think that, I mean, it is tough, because when you are a person who, I feel so lucky to have this platform to be able to speak on, but to be able to feel like your voice is heard, you need to learn first. And even as if a young person right now is unsure of what to do, but they're watching this series right now. That's a step to getting your voice heard. To educate, watch some documentaries, listen to some podcasts, acknowledge your privilege, understand what your privilege means. And I think that to get your voice heard, you have to gather the tools in order to, you know, be a real ally to the Black community.
I saw a video last night that was really heartbreaking, but also, you know, kind of like we're just reminding me just like why we're doing this. It was a girl trying to explain to her mom how she like wanted to be a part of the change that she wants to see in this country. Her mom was saying like, what are you going to be able to do? What can you do? You're just one person. Like, you're not going to do anything. She's just throwing these at her. And like, the girl's like, what do you mean? Like, what are you saying to me? And she's like, and the mom was like, what's wrong with you? And she's like, what's wrong with me for wanting to be a part of change? And I got really sad watching that video, because that's you're taking that away from a kid. You're taking away that is her mom taking away her voice, her want to be a part of something.
It's so sad.
And oh my goodness. It was rough. It was really rough to watch it, but I was like, and you know what? Tomorrow I'm hopping on a call with Asante Reed and Joey, and we're gonna talk about this stuff, and we're gonna be able to share it. And a girl like that's gonna see it, and she's gonna be like, oh, these kids, they're all around my age. Like I can learn something from this, and I can be a part of that change. So
that's that to me, that sort of brings up an interesting point. I was talking to my parents last night, and we were talking about the sort of like generational gap between the older generations who had to fight like before we were even born, and you know, us, like we're the leaders of this new movement, and this is big revolution that they've been talking about, you know. And it's like the older generations sort of are scared to pass that torch, it feels like, because there's so many new aspects to the struggle and the fight that we're fighting. And it's, you know, like it's unfortunate, but then, you know, it's fortunate that we get to do stuff like this, and we're able to, you know, take from the past and implement our ideas to, you know, push it towards a better future that we see. But you know, it's like how much more do our voices have to be sort of silenced for us to realize that we just have to take that moment, I guess.
So how do you feel about all the steps we've taken since the protests have started? Reed mentioned all 4 officers have now been charged, but you know, before that it was okay, Floyd's killer was first charged, but it was only 3rd-degree murder, so we had to fight to make it to 2nd degree. So, and then past that we have Mayor Garcetti taking what, 150 million of funding.
It was like 54% of the budget for LA went to you know, policing programs.
So he's taking some of that money and he's giving it back to Black communities, which is another step. So I want to know how you feel about all of that, and talk about how, you know, acknowledge the work that still needs to be done, as great as all these you know, these steps are.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as a white person, I can say that those feel like big victories, but I am not the side of the oppressed. So it is a victory, sure. But make no mistake, they didn't charge those officers because they thought it was right. They charged those officers because we protested. We were loud as fuck. That's why they charged those officers. Not because it was like the right thing to do, how the system works, not at all. So while we can say like, yes, that's a win, you can move forward and be like, thanks for doing that, but I'll never forget what it took to get it there. And you got to use that same drive to move everything forward. Because I mean, I hate when people are like, there's so much progress that's been made. It's like, sure, you could, if you really want to say that, like, tuck yourself in at night and feel all cozy, like, okay, but I mean, you know, your parents have been fighting, your grandparents have been fighting, their parents, their grandparents. How long does it take for your progress to happen?
Mhm.
How much longer do we have to wait for you to feel equal? To me, progress is awesome, sure, but it needs to happen much, much faster. I don't care that they charged the officers, because I'm happy they did, but it's because we fought.
Mhm.
And so we keep fighting, you keep fighting, and that's amazing, and we're gonna keep fighting. But I'm so tired of this progress being praised to the utmost level, when it's like, you know, generations have been fighting. So when do you feel equal? When?
You made a very interesting point there, and you know, how, in terms of how long do we have to wait? And I think that that's exactly what it is right there. We can't wait. You know, we have to make sure that we're putting these things in action. We're not waiting on anybody else to do it for us. We are doing it for ourselves.
Exactly. You're no longer accepting the things you cannot change. You are changing things you cannot accept.
Exactly. And we have to recognize that it is our responsibility as human beings to show up. You know, they are counting on us to stop protesting, to move on and continue talking about whatever we talk about on social media.
Get tired, to be
exactly
trendy,
not show up to the polls. They are counting on that. So that's why we have to make sure that we recognize it's our responsibility to continue applying pressure. We only got to where we got right now because we applied pressure, and we still have a long way to go, you know? So we have to continue applying this pressure. We have to, you know, it's going to be it's a hard fight, but it's going to be worth it 1,000%.
And we need white allies. People who are not a person of color need to continue to put their foot on the gas too, because this is not just a person of color issue anymore. This is, if you have friends who are oppressed, it is your issue too, and you need to fight for your friends.
I think that perfectly wraps everything up, guys.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you so much, Joey. Oh my
Thank
goodness.
you, Joey.
Yeah.
You know, your words, everybody, listen, I'm
Your
talking
brain
to
is
the audience
nice.
right now.
Your brain is nice. I like your
Oh my
brain.
God, Reed, thank you so much.
I had to say it. I couldn't hold it in.
Listen. Everybody
Brain
in the
is
audience that's
nice.
watching this, you guys need to take after Joey King, okay?
Yep.
She is a perfect example of the allies that we need,
Yeah.
and you know, she's giving examples of how to educate yourself and how to make sure that you are a part of this movement and that you're on the right side of history. So if you're gonna take after anybody, make sure you're taking after her, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks.
Miss
You're
Joey.
making me like, I'm literally starting to cry. No,
okay.
thank you for having me. Thank you for saying my brain is nice. But you
Remember it
guys,
always.
this is so, you guys are so amazing. This is so important what you're doing. You guys are such go-getters, and I just think that your ambition and your drive and your kindness through it all is just incredible. And I'm so honored to have been asked to be part of something so special. It means so much.
Oh man, the pleasure is all ours.
Yeah.
For sure.
Thanks,
Let's play
Joey.
Monopoly when this is all over.
Yes,
When
please.
Most definitely.
Coke-
Rick and Morty
Rick and
Monopoly.
Rick and Morty
Rick and Morty
Monopoly.
Monopoly.
Say less.
That's
Say less.
the
I'm
only
on
way.
my way.
No free parking. We play to the end.
Y'all got
No
street
free
parking.
Whole
parking.
9 yards.
No free parking. New rule.
No free
All right, guys. Signing off.
Peace out.
Tune in for the next episode. Peace.
Bye, you guys.
Bye.